The producer found a channel that's probably one of my favorites, and it's also about personal development. So now you've got my attention. Let's go.
If you are like most people, there is
Kurz gesagt. I love it. What I find brilliant about this channel, and if you have never watched the channel before, make sure you check it out, because they can make something very, very complex extremely simple.
a gap between the person you are and the person you wish to be. There are little things you think you should do and big things you ought to achieve. From working out regularly, eating healthily, learning a language, working on your novel, reading more, or simply actually doing your hobby instead of browsing Reddit. But it sometimes feels that to achieve your goals, you have to become a different person. Someone who is consistent, puts in more effort, has discipline and willpower. Maybe you've tried your hardest to be like that, and it worked.
I haven't seen this video from them. Already love it because it's extremely difficult, the topic that they just pointed out. I mean, a lot of people want to change, but change is hard, it's difficult. I don't know what their advice will be or what it is, kind of insights I will get from this video, but I already like it because they probably have an opinion on it.
For a while, until you find yourself slipping back into your old ways. In the end, you always seem to fail, and with every failed attempt, you become more and more frustrated and annoyed with yourself. If you believe...
I know a lot of people that will recognize this. It is hard, eh? It is hard.
Success and hustle internet, it's all your own fault. If
there's something I really have to say. The thing is the following. There is this collective illusion, especially in the United States, where everybody thinks that success is becoming famous and be successful in doing business and being an entrepreneur. I truly believe that is a collective illusion. Honestly, I think it's an issue for our society.
you don't succeed, you just didn't want it enough, and the failure is all you. But change is actually hard.
That's what I mean, right? So people say it's your own mistake because you can create your own future and your own destiny. And of course you have some influence on it yourself, but it's not as easy. The way they explain it, it's like, okay, it's very easy. If you do this and this and this, you will become successful. That's not how it works.
And as with most things in life, understanding why makes things easier.
It's really about why. You have to understand how things work. If you know how it works, you can do something about it.
The jungle. Imagine your brain as a lush
How do we end up from personal development into the jungle?
and dense jungle. Moving through it, say to make a decision to do something, is like moving through an actual jungle. It's hard and it costs energy. Your brain hates
I see the metaphor. By the way, metaphors work brilliant.
expending energy, so it came up with a trick. All your actions and behaviors leave paths in the jungle of your brain. As you start doing something, you trample down some plants and make rough, improvised trails through the undergrowth. The more often you do the thing, the more pronounced the trail becomes. Over time, it turns into a path that is easier to tread, so you take it more often, and it turns into a street.
I completely recognize what he's saying here. I always use the metaphor of bridging a gap. So the first time you have to bridge this gap, you use a rope and you climb over it. And the next time you think of it, okay, I should make a rope bridge. So it's a little bit more firm. And over the years, you make it a concrete bridge. And because it's a concrete bridge, you don't have to think about it anymore because you can cross it anytime.
Repeat doing the thing over and over for years, the street turns into a highway. Traversing it becomes effortless, familiar, and comfortable. The more pronounced your brain highways, the
Tic tac. And let's chill.
more you get used to their comfort. So we continue to use them, which means we tend to do what we've always done. This is why change is hard, especially as an adult when your jungle is crisscrossed by lots of established streets and highways. To understand how those highways are built, we need to distinguish between two things: routines and habits.
I forgot about which video it was, but the video title was like, don't set goals, set habits. I can relate to that, for sure.
The things you do, routines and habits. A routine is a sequence of actions that you carry out the same way every time because they've worked out well for you. For example, you get the same ingredients for your favorite dish and cook them in a certain order because you like the taste of the result. Or before going to bed, you set an alarm at 6:30 because this is when you want to get up. Imagine routines as being executed by a wise planner. It's slow and analytical, responsible for strategizing and mental calculations.
That is so interesting. And sometimes I forget to explain that to people. I truly believe that you need to set goals, but in order to get there, it's also about the routines that you have. One of the routines I picked up a couple of years ago is a cold shower in the morning. In the beginning, it was very hard, and I started doing that in winter time. And now it's the other way around. If I haven't had a cold shower, I'm not going well through my day. So it's not an issue anymore.
The planner is aware of the future and carefully considers what kind of result you want. Based on that, it chooses actions to achieve specific outcomes, even if they are uncomfortable, like taking a shower after getting up. Routines can eventually turn into habits, which feel much easier because they're basically a sequence of actions carried out without thinking about them. You've done them so often before that your brain considers.
Now the question, of course, is how do you change your routines and how do you make new routines?
Them rewarding and a great response to a situation. So a habit can feel like you're on autopilot.
What I try to explain here is a quite complicated thing. Basically, it comes down to the following. You make a decision based on the beliefs that you have. You're not aware of it. So if you want to change your routines, you also have to do something in your beliefs. Doing something in your beliefs is extremely difficult. That's why they call them limiting beliefs, right? And why is it so difficult? Because if you want to change something deliberately, so you have to think about it consciously, it takes so much effort and so much energy, it's almost impossible to do. Nevertheless, it's not really impossible. It can be done, but it takes a little bit of effort.
You don't have to convince yourself to do something that's a habit, you just do it. The important thing about habits is that they are set in motion by triggers, context cues that can be single things or entire situations that.
If you come home at 5 o'clock or 5:30 and you open up for 10 days a beer, on the 11th day it will be a routine. It becomes difficult to get rid of it. Getting rid of it is probably not going to work. How you can change it is that you say, okay, I don't want to get rid of it. I replace one routine for another routine. That is extremely helpful.
Give your brain the signal to start the behavior or action.
A healthy routine, right? So don't change it for another unhealthy routine.
You already have a lot of triggers in your life, like when you see your phone. You almost always unlock the screen. Or you reach for the seatbelt when you sit in a.
I said it already many times. On another channel, I already said something about this phone. It's a little bit like a paradox because I like YouTube. I like making these kind of videos and give people advice. And actually what I'm saying to you is get rid of this phone. Don't watch these videos anymore. But the phone, give it a thought. Put it away. Right now, I'm trying to create a habit to leave my phone in the car or at least now downstairs. Because otherwise I have it with me. Even if I put it on the table up there, it distracts me.
Car. Or when you buy your coffee before work, you also get a cookie, even though you aren't actually hungry. Habits are executed by an impulsive toddler. It responds to your immediate desires based on what's around you, without considering any longer-term goals. For the toddler, the future doesn't exist and it hates hard work. So when it notices a trigger, it steers you to take this easy road inside your brain that leads to a familiar, rewarding result. If you get coffee,
they call it the CEO brain. In other words, are you capable of delaying the gratification? You can practice that, of course. So instead of in the weekend on Friday, you say to yourself, okay, now it's Friday, I can have a beer or a glass of wine. So instead of doing that right away, you can also say to yourself, let's see if I can postpone it for another 2 hours. There's a big chance that after 2 hours, you're not craving for it anymore. That's already, well, a big thing, right?
The toddler also wants the cookie just because that's what you do every morning. This rewarding feeling is also how most of your bad habits started. Chocolate is tasty, browsing Reddit is occasionally mildly entertaining. This is why you repeat these actions, even if they're bad for you. Rewarding feelings associated with an action demand to be repeated.
Small advice. The thing is that we all like dopamine, right? But there are many ways how you can get your dopamine. That if you have certain routines that create cheap dopamine, try to replace them with routines that give you high quality dopamine. What do I mean? If you scroll through the shorts of YouTube, you get dopamine, but it's cheap dopamine. It's the same with watching Reddit, what they're mentioning. But you could also say, okay, I can go for a run. You also create dopamine, but that's high quality dopamine. Give it a thought.
And so a bad habit is born. While the toddler sounds like a built-in sabotage mechanism, it is as important as the wise planner, and actually they work together most of the time. You need your wise planner for thinking big thoughts and parallel parking and doing your taxes. But letting your wise planner do everything would cost too much energy.
This really comes down to Daniel Kahneman's work. He used the metaphor of System 1 and System 2. Your System 1 is doing basically everything for you. You don't think about it. All your pathways are there. You run very intuitive your life. And your System 2, it needs a lot of energy, but you need it for planning. You need it for real critical thinking. If you have to be in System 2 all the time, it becomes complicated. But those two, they interact. So if you want to change your habits, don't get rid of a habit. Use your System 2 to create a new, more healthy habit. And before you know, your System 1 takes over. Remember the beginning of the video where they were talking about these pathways? That's how you do it.
Sourcing mundane and repetitive tasks to habits managed by the toddler allows your brain to easily manage your daily life while dealing with more complex mental challenges at the same time. So if we want to change and introduce a new behavior into our lives, we can actually use these energy-saving
Now I'm curious if they're giving the same advice.
mechanisms to make it easier. We'll focus on small things, not big ones. Improving your life a little is so much better than aiming high and changing nothing.
So true. I always make the comparison with sailing. You have the autopilot, right? But you can deviate by a degree. But if you deviate it by a degree, the ship will go a little bit to the left or to the right. In the beginning, you don't see any changes. But if you wait for 2 or 3 hours, you have a completely different course. That's what they mean with small steps. Small steps have a big impact on the long term.
Especially because small changes can do a lot over months and years. How to build a habit. If you want to make change easier, the best way may not be to force it with willpower, but to convince your brain that it's not that big of a deal.
I love this video. Whoever came up with the phrase willpower, I think they should ask him or her, what do you mean with willpower? That is so hard.
By creating new routines and then turning them into habits. You want your wise planner to construct that first trail and then use your toddler to help initiate the action.
System 2 is making the new habit. You need to think about it. Will cost you a lot of energy. I promise you, within a couple of weeks, your System 1 will take over and it will be very easy.
Effortlessly. Let's say you want to work out to be fitter, a very common goal. The first thing to do is to break down this pretty vague goal into clear, separate actions, because the idea is to make the action itself.
Goals always need to be rational. They should be tangible, it should be clear, they should be measurable.
As easy a threshold as possible. So small it's manageable, and so specific that you don't have to think about it a lot. For example, a tangible, controllable action might be doing 10 squats every morning.
That is funny. I just started doing the squats.
So you can start by trying to create a routine, but
I'm already on 30. And I started almost 2 weeks ago.
Include clear triggers that the toddler can pick up later on. Remember, a trigger is nothing more than a signal that you always associate with the action. They can be visual pointers like seeing a particular object, like your training outfit, or a certain time of day, or a designated place like a nearby park, or even better, all of these things combined. The important thing is that you always start doing your action in a specific context. This trigger is the start button that will eventually set off the action automatically.
What I like about this trigger part is not only for changing habits, but just give it a thought. How many triggers are in your surroundings that are a trigger for bad behavior or bad routines?
So to establish a home workout habit with 10 squats to begin with, you could make sure to always do them with your exercise gear on at the same place and time, like in your living room at 8 a.m. Once you have your trigger and action, all you need to do is repeat them regularly, ideally every day. If you keep going, they will change from a routine to a habit, from a trail to a highway. Don't get this wrong, the squats will still take you energy to do.
There's one thing in this video that they haven't covered yet. Perhaps it will come, I don't know, I haven't seen the video yet. The thing is, you can say to yourself, okay, I need to take action because I want to have different results. Right? That seems logical. That's what they're talking about. So I'm going to take action to create new pathways. And because of that, I can change my routines. The thing is, if you don't believe in changing your routine, what will happen is that you will not unlock your potential. But if you're not unlocking your potential by believing it, you will probably will not take the right actions. If you don't take the right actions, you get bad results. Then you're confirming the beliefs that you already have. And not so many people talk about the belief. And I think it should be it really should get more attention. That's why we're also creating these kind of videos. Change starts with what is it that you believe.
But the decision to do them will feel much less like a chore and more like a regular part of your day. While this is simple, it's not.
What people sometimes say is willpower and motivation, right? But where's motivation and willpower coming from? That's the question that you should ask yourself. Your willpower and your motivation is mainly based on the belief that you have. Do you believe that you will be successful? Do you have the belief that you will succeed in the goals you're setting for yourself? If you truly believe in it, there will be motivation and there will be willpower. Give it a thought.
Not easy. Many things you want to turn into habits don't offer as much instant gratification as wasting time on Reddit. To make your new action easier to repeat and more likely to be picked up by the toddler, try to make it pleasurable. Not necessarily by rewarding yourself after you've done it, but by making the action or behavior itself more enjoyable. Like only listening to
It's a classic one, right? It's about the journey, it's not about the goal.
Your favorite podcast while working out, or chipping away at your taxes while you wait for civilization to load the next round. You need to figure out what works for you. In principle, that's it. Frustratingly simple, like most things you can do to make your life better. How long it takes for your toddler to take over and establish a habit varies widely. It depends on the behavior you're trying to get used to, what kind of
Just educate your toddler, right? How hard can it be?
person you are, your stress levels, and many more things. It takes anything between 15 and 250 days until a new habit is kicked off automatically by its trigger.
It's really simple.
You won't know how long it will take for you. Starting is the easy part, especially in the first week or two. Continuing to do it every day is the hard part, but it does get easier as you keep going. There are no silver bullets for change, but the science of habits is a reminder that it is.
There's no silver bullet for change. Hopefully, you also are a little bit more cautious when you're watching videos about success and change, etc. Because they always make it seem so easy.
Possible no matter how old or young you are. Even if you only end up doing a little more good stuff or a few new things, that's still a success. Being a little bit more healthy or knowledgeable is a million times better than being unhappy about a thing and changing nothing. In the end,
we all have these days, right? You're sitting on the couch and you feel like I want to do anything. Easiest way to get started is to say to yourself, okay, go for a walk for 30 minutes. Because during the walk you will be outside. It's already healthy for you. Even if it's a 15-minute walk. Half an hour perhaps is already too long. But after these 15 minutes you will feel completely different. Research shows, by the way, that people who are depressed, they profit more from running and walking outside in nature than from medicine. So imagine what it will do to you if you go for a walk for 15 minutes just to change your habits. So, bottom line, set goals, take a careful look at your habits and your routines, and work on your beliefs.